at this thing. No, seriously, look at it. Spiked brass knuckles, a serrated combat blade, a design so aggressive it looks like a villain's weapon from a dystopian nightmare. This is the Cobra knife, and in many places, just owning one of these can get you arrested. But here's the crazy part. This wasn't designed by some mall ninja or underground weapons dealer. This was designed by Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, that's Stallone. Rocky. Rambo. The Italian stallion himself. And while everyone remembers Rambo's iconic survival knife, the Cobra knife is what happens when Stallone decides Rambo wasn't excessive enough. This is a knife that screams the 1980s made this, and the 1980s were on something strong. But to understand how we got here, you need to understand Stallone's first famous knife, and why by 1986, he decided it was time to go completely off the rails. 1982. First Blood introduces the world to John Rambo and his knife. That beautiful, legendary Gil Hibben survival knife with the saw-teeth spine and the hollow handle. It became an icon. That knife sold millions. It defined what a survival knife looked like for an entire generation. Every kid wanted one. Every action hero needed something similar. But by the mid-80s, there was a problem. The action movie arms race was heating up. Schwarzenegger had his minigun in Predator. Chuck Norris had his everything. Every hero needed a signature weapon, something memorable. Enter 1986's Cobra. Stallone plays Marion Cobra Cabretti, a rogue LA cop who plays by his own rules. The movie's tagline? Crime is a disease. Meet the cure. Subtle, right? But Sly had a problem. He couldn't just recycle the Rambo knife. This was a different character. A cop, not a soldier. Urban, not wilderness. And this was Stallone. The man doesn't do subtle. So he decided to design the knife himself. Not just request a prop, actually sit down and draw what he wanted. And what he wanted was something that looked like it could hurt you just by looking at it. But to turn this fever dream into reality, Stallone needed a craftsman willing to say yes to absolutely insane requests. He needed someone who didn't ask why, but instead asked, how sharp do you want those spikes? He needed Herman Schneider. Herman Schneider wasn't just any knife maker. By the 1980s, he'd built a reputation as the guy who could make anything. You draw it, he'll forge it. No design too crazy, no request too ridiculous. Fantasy swords? Done. Tactical nightmares? Easy. A knife shaped like a dragon? Why not? So when Sylvester Stallone walked in with sketches of a knife that looked like brass knuckles had a baby with a Bowie knife and that baby grew up angry, Herman didn't blink. Stallone's brief was simple. Make me something that screams, don't fuck with me. The design pulled from history, specifically World War I trench knives. Those brutal knuckle duster blades that soldiers used in close quarters combat in the muddy hell of European trenches. Trench knives were already vicious. Brass knuckle grips with a blade attached, designed for one purpose: brutal, efficient killing in confined spaces. But Stallone's vision? Take that historical brutality and turn it up to 11. Spike the knuckles. Serrate the blade. Make it bigger, make it meaner, make it look like it belongs on the cover of a heavy metal album. Herman delivered. Brass knuckle grip with aggressive spikes. 7-inch serrated blade. Angular, aggressive lines. A weight and presence that announced itself when you walked into a room. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was completely absurd. And it was perfect for an over-the-top 80s action movie. But here's where Stallone's fantasy knife ran into a very real problem. In most of America, what Herman Schneider had just created wasn't just impractical, it was illegal. And the knife community was about to have a field day.
That finished weapon, the hero weapon, it's a work of art. It's perfect.
Let's talk about why the Cobra knife gets called illegal or banned, because this is where things get interesting. First, understand this. The Cobra knife isn't illegal because it's scary looking. It's not illegal because it's from a movie. It's illegal because of what it is, a combination weapon. See those knuckles? In most US states, brass knuckles are flat out illegal to own, carry, or sell. Possession can mean fines, confiscation, even jail time. The reasoning? Brass knuckles are classified as offensive weapons, tools designed purely for harm with no legitimate utility purpose. Courts have consistently ruled they have no use for self-defense, hunting, work, or sport. Now add a blade to those brass knuckles and you've just compounded the problem. You're not carrying a knife. You're carrying a combination weapon specifically designed for combat. In many jurisdictions, this makes the Cobra knife a prohibited weapon, right up there with switchblades, butterfly knives, and other regulated blades. When Herman Schneider started making real versions for sale, not just movie props, the knife community lost its mind. Stories started circulating, the knife being confiscated at blade shows, collectors getting pulled over with one in their car and having to explain to confused cops why they owned what looked like an illegal weapon, customs seizing them at borders. But here's the twist. The legal gray area became a selling point. For collectors, the illegality added mystique. It became a conversation piece, a rebellious statement. Yeah, I own the knife that's illegal in 47 states. What are you going to do about it? And you want to know the ultimate irony? In the movie Cobra, Stallone uses this knife in exactly one scene. It's barely on screen for 30 seconds. He pulls it out, looks badass, and that's pretty much it. The knife became more famous than its own movie moment. So you'd think a knife this impractical, this legally sketchy, this barely featured in its own movie would just fade away, right? Another forgotten 80s relic? Not even close. Because the Cobra knife was about to do something no one expected. It was about to become a cult classic worth more than the movie that spawned it. Fast forward to today, an original Herman Schneider Cobra knife, the real movie prop version, can sell for over $1,000, sometimes $1,500. In pristine condition? Even more. For a knife that was barely in its own movie. For a knife that's illegal in most places. For a knife that has almost zero practical use. So what happened? Simple. Nostalgia. The Cobra knife isn't just a knife. It's the 1980s crystallized in brass and steel. Everything about it screams that decade. The excess, the machismo, the more is more philosophy, the unapologetic aggression. The 80s gave us hair metal, shoulder pads the size of dinner plates, sports cars with pop-up headlights, and action movies where the good guy could mow down 200 bad guys without reloading. The Cobra knife fits perfectly into that aesthetic. And because original Schneiders became expensive, the knockoff market exploded. Everyone started making inspired by versions. Some are garbage, pot metal that'll break if you look at it wrong. Others are surprisingly decent, but none carry the cachet of an original. Modern makers have tried to improve the design. Tactical versions with better steel, modernized grips, different blade profiles, all trying to capture that Cobra magic while making it slightly less illegal or slightly more functional. But here's the thing, just like the tracker knife, almost nobody actually uses their Cobra knife. They sit in cases. They hang on walls next to movie posters. They get photographed for Instagram. Because using a Cobra knife for actual tasks is like wearing a tuxedo to mow the lawn. Technically possible, but kind of missing the point. The knife has transcended its movie. It shows up in video games. Other films reference it. It became a symbol, not of practical knife design, but of 80s action movie excess. And with the current wave of 80s nostalgia, Stranger Things, synthwave music, retro aesthetics, the Cobra knife is having a renaissance. Gen Z discovering it for the first time. Millennials remembering it fondly. Gen X saying, I told you this thing was cool. Prices keep climbing. New versions keep selling. The controversy keeps it relevant. Because at the end of the day, the Cobra knife doesn't need to be practical. It needs to be memorable. Which brings us to the real question. What does a knife this stupid, this impractical, this aggressively 80s actually tell us? Because love it or hate it, the Cobra knife succeeded in ways its creators never imagined. The Cobra knife is what happens when an entire decade's philosophy gets forged into a weapon. The 1980s didn't believe in restraint. Bigger hair, louder music, more chrome, more muscles, more everything. If you could add another spike, another curve, another aggressive line, you did. And the Cobra knife is that mindset in physical form. It's not enough to have a knife. It's not enough to have brass knuckles. You need both. With spikes and serrations. And an attitude problem. Just like the Lamborghini Countach was an impractical nightmare to drive but became an icon. Just like Rambo's headband served no tactical purpose but became legendary. Just like every action movie hero reloading once per 500 bullets made no sense but looked awesome. Stallone understood something important. Memorable beats practical every single time. You know what's practical? A $40 Mora knife, a simple fixed blade, a Swiss Army knife, boring, functional tools that get the job done. You know what's memorable? A brass-knuckled, spike-covered, serrated nightmare that looks like it was designed by someone who thought function was a weakness. And that memorability inspired countless other over-the-top designs. Fantasy knives, tactical nightmares, zombie apocalypse gear. The Cobra knife proved you could make something absurd and have people love it for being absurd. The knife isn't illegal because it's scary. It's not illegal because it's from a movie. It's illegal because someone looked at Stallone's ridiculous sketch and said, yeah, let's make that real. And that's kind of beautiful in its own way. The Cobra knife. Too illegal to carry, too impractical to use, too expensive to risk, and too 80s to ever fade away. Proof that sometimes too much isn't a mistake, it's a statement. And in the immortal words of the 80s, go big or go home.